break. Well, plenty more to get through tonight, so let's not waste any time. I want to bring in our Friday panel. Joining me is Small Business Women Australia CEO Amanda Rose and Sky News contributor Gary Hardgrave. Welcome to you both. Now, despite the failure of the Voice referendum, state governments across the country insist we need Indigenous treaties. In New South Wales, the Minns government has appointed 3 commissioners to conduct a 12-month-long listening tour to work out how to create an Indigenous treaty process. Amanda, these commissioners, they're going to travel across the state and then they're going to deliver a report so the government can work out how to implement a treaty between the New South Wales government and a small proportion of its own citizens. Is this a good use of taxpayer money?
Well, put it this way. It obviously is saying we're not listening to them now, right? So that's actually quite... It's exposing a weakness or something that they're doing. But if they're going to provide that, I have no problems with them doing that as long as they provide it to everyone else. So where's the listening tour for the people with disabilities? Where's the listening tour for the farmers and those in the rural, New South Wales? Where's the listening tour for our young people? We need to make sure everyone is heard and treated equally, because if not, what you're actually doing is creating a divisive community, and people will turn on those that have an opportunity when others don't.
Well, I mean, Gary, I thought we had that opportunity. It's called the ballot box every 3 or 4 years, isn't it?
Absolutely, and the job of every member, state, federal, council, whatever it is to be listening constantly. One of these, 2 of those. That's the plan. They should be shutting up and listening. And the problem I've got with all of this sort of stuff is it actually says to members of parliament, don't worry about Aboriginal stuff, give it to the 3 people who are wandering around the state on the taxpayer teat for the next 12 months. So they're actually abrogating their responsibility to look after all of their constituents. And this is just politically pathetic. It is about creating division. I do not want representative apartheid. I don't want separate development. I want all Australians, whether they be Christian, Muslim, whether they be Jewish, whether they be Aboriginal, whether they be 38% Scottish like people like me, whatever we are, we're all in this country together, and the idea of separate flags being flown, the idea of separate commissioners responsible for some people is wrong. But, I mean, I think Amanda's right. The fact that all these different other groups want to be listened to as well is true, but that's the job of a local member. And if the local member's not doing them, vote them out. Pretty simple.
Absolutely. And my other problem with this whole treaty process, Amanda, is a treaty is between 2 parties. So the government are going to do a tour to listen to what Indigenous people think about a treaty, but who's surveying non-Indigenous people? Because are we not the other party?
Well, that's true. And I thought everyone already decided on what they wanted in a referendum, which is the whole democratic process. So what it's also saying is if you disagreed with the government, we don't care. We're going to do what we want anyway. And that really isn't what Australia is about. And it's quite disheartening. And like Gary's right, the reality is they might think this is great, but I guarantee you the Australians are quiet, but they will vote you out if they don't like what they see or what you're doing.
Well, we can only hope, Amanda. We can only hope. Now, I want to move on to another issue that's really fascinating me. Fascinating? It's just frustrating me, actually. Australia is pushing to hold the Taliban to account following its crackdown on Afghan women's freedoms. Penny Wong announced that Australia will join Canada, Germany and the Netherlands in spearheading a challenge to the Taliban under an international convention on eliminating discrimination against women. Gary, I want to ask you, is this pure virtue signalling? I mean, do we really think the Taliban are up late at night worrying about international conventions, let alone the opinions of Penny Wong?
Look, I don't think many Australians are up worrying about the opinions of Penny Wong either. Look, Penny Wong is in a dreadful mess right now. She doesn't know what she's doing on multiple fronts, and this is just another one of them. Look, let's not forget that if it hadn't been for the hapless withdrawal out of Afghanistan, the Taliban would not be having the sort of power they've got right now. Joe Biden should be joined in any of this legal action, frankly, for the way in which he administered that departure. The Taliban are doing dreadful things to women in Afghanistan every day. Women and girls have gone backwards in Afghanistan every day. So I understand the point about it. But the international left are all into this big distraction thing. You know, they're giving comfort to Hezbollah at the moment. They're saying, Israel, you know, withdraw, have your ceasefire and all this sort of stuff, just when they've got the foot literally on the throats of these bad buggers. And they're being financed again by Iran, another Joe Biden disaster. I mean, James, everywhere you turn, the left are trying to distract us, divide us and create this stuff. No, they're not going to be worried about legal action. I mean, they're hardly going to comply with any result. What court's going to do it? But we can all agree that they are bad to women and girls, and I think that is something Australia should have a view on. So, you know, part of me says yes, but a lot of me says this is just a complete waste of time and money, a waft tam.
I mean, Gary, I agree with you. Australia should have a strong view on the rights of women. But what I can't get my head around, Amanda, is, of course, this government is very worried about the rights of women in far-off Afghanistan. Meanwhile, here in Australia, they're struggling to define what a woman actually is and to protect the integrity of women's spaces and women's sports. Which is more important right now for people in Australia?
Well, it's true that we need to be focusing on our own backyard. And Penny Wong did mention that she didn't like the fact that girls were being denied education. We have women being denied education and financial independence in domestic violence situations everywhere in this country. And their perpetrators, they go to court, they get let off on bail, and they're repeat offenders. So if we're going to worry about the safety of girls and women, let's worry about them here, and let's make sure they're protected in their own homes and in our own country before we worry about others.
Great point. Great point.